welcome to this June 9th edition of the Paperboyz. We are the Courier sports team. I'm sports editor Doug Newhoff. In the corner to my left, we have Jim Nelson, Carson Tigges, and over here in the corner to my right, we have Nick Petaros and assistant sports editor Jim Sullivan. We've got a lot to talk about in the world of sports this week. The big news, of course, is Iowa State's hiring yesterday of Steve Prohm as its new head basketball coach. I'm not sure how success in the Ohio Valley Conference translates to the Big 12, but it certainly appears the Cyclones have landed a rising star in the coaching ranks. I listened to some of his introductory press conference this morning. He says all the right things, talks the talk. I think his track record at Murray State indicates he also walks the walk. 3 postseason tournaments in 4 years there, 104-29 record. Looks like a good hire. You guys, what's your thought about where they went and how fast they got there?
Well, how fast they got there is interesting in and of itself. Apparently they had a pretty good list going before Fred moved on to Chicago. From what I understand, Prohm is a guy that can bring in talent. He's done very well at Murray State. He's brought in guys who have at least had a look in the NBA, so that's encouraging. Now the whole part that we don't know and won't find out till beginning of next year is how will he manage a game against Bill Self and that sort of talent? How will he do against Texas? How will he do against Lon Kruger? We won't know that until, again, we see him in action.
It does appear that he likes to play an up-tempo style, get up and down the court. I mean, all of us have seen Murray State play a few times in the last 3 or 4 years, and they're a fun team to watch. They really get after it, so that should translate well with Iowa State fans. I mean, they should enjoy the style of play, but I still come back to the question that nobody can answer, I guess, at this point is how does success at Murray State in what I think generally is not a top-to-bottom strong Ohio Valley Conference, how does that translate to the Big 12?
Yeah, well, you mentioned the up-tempo pace. I think that was important to fans and just kind of get some continuity there with Fred Hoiberg leaving the roster he has. And all those things, when you look at mid-major coaches stepping up, it's always just kind of a crapshoot. I mean, look at Greg McDermott. When he went to Iowa State, he was doing well at UNI and just didn't work out at Iowa State. And I mean, there's plenty of examples either way. It can really just fall either way with the flip of a coin, I think.
And you have Fran McCaffrey from Siena to Iowa. I mean, I don't know how he's done in the Big Ten so far, but you have to think he's equated himself well at the major level, going from a mid-major too. So now you'll have, 2 of those programs, Iowa and Iowa State, where you have coaches that came from the smaller conferences and are now in the major conferences there.
Is it fair to call Steve Prohm kind of a rising star in the coaching ranks? I mean, he's been a little bit under the radar, but he certainly was on Jamie Pollard's short list.
Yeah, I think so, and he's a younger guy, so he hasn't had all that time behind him. But you look at somebody like Brad Stevens, he was a younger guy, and he's done some winning, he's done some recruiting. I think Jamie Pollard said this morning in that press conference, if he can recruit to Murray, Kentucky, he can recruit to Ames, Iowa, and that's it right there. If he can continue to do that, he should find some success.
There are probably 2 questions that aren't answered, that may not be answered. Is number one, why didn't Alabama hire him when they had the chance? Because if he's, and it has nothing with his ability, they may have had other priorities, but he's has roots down there, so why didn't he go that direction? The other thing, number 2, is now is where does Jamie Pollard stand in all this? I mean, he's behind the hire, but there's always this discussion in the back of quote-unquote tension between him and the president. The president tried to downplay that in a big way the other day. So if you take him at his word, everything is fine. But that report had to come from somewhere. Somewhere in Ames, someone believes that there's, if not hostility, that there was some disagreement there. So we'll see how that all plays out as we go forward.
I think I saw on Twitter today that Jamie said something to that, and he was downplaying that too. He said it was like hogwash or something, that there was discord between them. But you never know really behind what's going on behind the scenes and what they're going to present in front of us.
And don't you think, I mean, it's the president's responsibility to some extent to have some input in these kind of decisions, but ultimately they leave it up to the people that they hire to make them.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't imagine there's much of a rift there really behind the scenes. But what else do you guys hear on the Twitter feed? Are Cyclone fans generally excited about this hire? Or?
I think they are. I think for the reasons like Carson stated a moment ago, they like the idea that it's up-tempo. They like the idea that he's a younger guy with the kind of track record you can have. We don't know how that will translate, as we said before, but I think they like all the things we've said. I think his initial meetings with the players have been positive. So right now, the honeymoon is on.
I think too. I think where I saw there's some statistics out there. We're all along that offensive thing, but they were like, I know my numbers might be wrong, but 8th in scoring last year in the nation, and then offensive efficiency, our per possession, they were in the top 22. So those are things that they were looking forward to, especially with this roster they have coming back.
It'll be an interesting season because it's a team that's built to win now. It's not like he's going to get a lot of time to settle in there. He's going to be expected to do some pretty big things in that first season as an Iowa State head coach.
And then we'll get to see what kind of recruiter he is, because I believe they do have like 6 or 7 open scholarships for next year.
No question, he's got some huge shoes to fill, so the bar is set pretty high down there. It'll be an interesting deal. Let's go around the table. I mean, everybody always brings something to each edition of the Paperboyz. Nelly, what do you have for us this week?
Well, we were talking about it, and I think I heard it on the thing, and they're talking about Miles skated in an NHL game. I couldn't find that anywhere on the thing, but an interesting fact is on Duncan Keith with the Blackhawks, he is averaging 31 minutes and 20 seconds of ice time a game, and that is going to be, if that holds true through the playoffs, or the Stanley Cup Finals, that will be the most minutes logged, or average minutes logged by an NHL player since Elias Sports Bureau started keeping that stat in 1998.
So he only plays half the game, and this is a good thing.
Yeah, 30 or 31 minutes. The next highest guy is his teammate, Brett Seabrook, was 26 minutes. So he's logging. And if you look at it, he's being relied on so much by Joel Quenneville right now. He's also tied for third in scoring in the playoffs so far. And he leads the all NHL players in the playoffs with a plus 14. So this is a guy that Joel is really relying on, and you can see it with 31 minutes, 20 seconds of game time.
As long as we're on the NHL Finals, it's interesting. I mean, it's been fun to watch the intensity and the pace that these two teams have gone after each other with. They've split, Tampa Bay's won 2 out of 3. They've all been close games. I mean, they've gone down to the wire. It seems like Tampa Bay has a knack for coming up with the big goal at the big time, at least in the first 3 games. Where do you guys see this series going?
It's going to go down to the wire, I think. I think Chicago's going to come back with some fire in this game 4 and probably even it up, and it's going to go back to Tampa Bay. And I think it could be a game 7 type thing.
Just from what I've seen from watching, it seems like when one team scores a goal, the other team comes back and scores a goal like a minute later, or like the Blackhawks in game 1, I think they scored 2 goals in 3 minutes or something to come back from a 1-0 deficit. So it's just kind of things like that where you never know, and it can happen at the drop of a hat. I
think if you look at it, the biggest goal it might play out in this whole series was the goal that the Tampa Bay scored 13 seconds after Chicago took a 2-1 lead last night. They retie that game because I think if Chicago wins that game last night, this series could be over in 5 games. I mean, Chicago could. I don't see Chicago losing 2 games at home. That could happen. That was only their second home loss in the playoffs last night. So, that was a huge goal there, 13 seconds after Chicago took a 2-1 lead there.
It's been great hockey. It's been really entertaining to watch, and I know personally I've enjoyed it a lot. Nick, what do you have for us this week?
All right. Well, this day in sports history, we recently had a Triple Crown winner, and you go back to June 9th, 1973. That's when Secretariat, ridden by Ron Turcotte, won the Belmont Stakes in a record time to capture the Triple Crown. And Secretariat set a world record on that 1.5-mile course with a 2:24, largest margin of victory. He won by 31 lengths. The kind of interesting thing tying Secretariat to American Pharoah is I know there's a video circulating that the Wall Street Journal did with the time lapse with the side-by-side of the 2 races, and it showed how far Secretariat would have finished ahead of American Pharoah. And I think that 538 website Nate Silver does, they had it at Secretariat would have beat American Pharoah by 13.5 lengths. So obviously it's a horse that's withstood the test of time there.
Does that take into account track conditions, weather, and all those kind of things?
I think they're kind of taking in the math and the time and all that, yeah.
Carson, what do you bring to the table this week?
Yeah, speaking of horse racing, there is $315,829 just blowing in the wind out at Belmont Park. 90,237 winning tickets on American Pharoah are uncashed. Those are $2 tickets. They're bought for $2, now worth $350. There were 3,891 that were cashed, but my question to you is, do you cash in for $350, or do you hold on to a tiny piece of paper that is maybe a tiny piece of history?
I think that's what those, 90,000 of them unclaimed?
Yeah.
I think that's what those 90,000 people thinking they're going to cash in maybe in 5 years, and it's going to be worth,
Not with 90,000 of them out there.
I know.
But it is a unique piece of sports history, that memorabilia that you can hang on to for the rest of your life. So
There is one seller on eBay I saw. He's offering 500 of those tickets, a stack, 500 of unclaimed tickets for $15,000 if you want those.
I don't think he's getting any takers on that. Although if you do have one of those tickets, don't you just hang on to it and hope no one wins that Triple Crown again for another 30 years or so, and then you see what the market is.
I think I think it's a great $3.50 souvenir for me.
Yeah,
It's hanging on my wall somewhere.
That's kind of the direction I'm going too. I think that's a good thing to hang on to.
I say the sportsbooks don't need any more help making money. I'll take my $3.50 and go get a beer.
Where do you buy that?
Yeah, where do you get a $3.50 beer? Sully, what's up with you this week?
Well, among the many other things we have going on this week and these particular couple of days, we also have the Major League Baseball draft. Actually, it's now 50 years since it started in 1965, the draft as we now know it. And I thought I'd look up a little University of Northern Iowa history. The Panthers had 27 players drafted since 1966. Now, this does not include, keep in mind, people like Dwayne Josephson. He was before this time. 27 people drafted. The first one was a man named Philip Johnson, who was taken by the Minnesota Twins in 1966. The last one was better known as a basketball player, Lucas O'Rear, 13th round Cincinnati Reds in 2010.
Interesting.
And I was just trying to think of the name of the left hand of the Twins drafted, and I can't remember what his name
Tyler
is.
J.
Tyler J., who got pounded by Vanderbilt last night. So.
Yeah, typical Twins draft pick. Not very impressive on paper. We'll see what happens with that. But let's touch briefly here on the NBA Finals. 1-1 pair of overtime games. It looks like Cleveland's in it for the long haul. I can't believe LeBron James can continue to carry this team on his back the way he certainly did in the last game here last night, or Sunday night. But what do you guys think about where this thing is headed?
I don't know. The ending of that last game was brutal to watch, though. I mean, it's isolation, LeBron James, him shooting a step back or trying to get a foul to the hoop. The refs were inconsistent, to say the least. And then Steph Curry couldn't make anything, and it didn't seem like he wanted to pass and give any others of his teammates a shot at it either. I just hope it picks up a little bit from game 2.
Yeah, I think you said it. I mean, the Cavs are just going to go as far as LeBron James can carry them, and right now that's looking pretty good. And they changed some things with, I think they tried to be a little bit more physical with Golden State. Golden State's a team that likes to score. The higher scoring, the better. So if they can slow it down a little bit, be a little more physical and kind of throw them off. Golden State's not used to playing like that. Kind of slow the game down, fewer possessions. They can maybe kind of try to grind it out. And when you're LeBron James, you're the only guy on the team who can score, really. Grinding it out is what you're going to have to do.
You know, Cavaliers coach David Blatt's taken his share of criticism for his abilities, I guess, during the course of the year. But the fact that he's able to continue to get the ball into LeBron's hands, despite him being the guy that Golden State knows they have to stop, I mean, it says a little bit to me about what he's doing schematically to make sure that the right things happen for that team.
Yeah, and I'm also a little worried for LeBron. He hasn't been, I guess you could say, clutch when he's had opportunities to win the game. I mean, he's played terrific. He's had great games, but people are going to remember those last 5 seconds, and especially in the age we live in here with the talk radio and Skip Bayless on ESPN, and if he continues to miss these last second shots, I'm worried that some of his efforts are going to go a little unappreciated.
He did miss 24 shots.
The thing is that I saw this stat on the internet. He's averaging 48 minutes a game in the finals. In other words, he's playing the entire game. And he has admitted himself that this is taking a toll on his body, as you would imagine it would. And one of these stories also posed a very, very good question. If LeBron isn't shooting well, exactly who should he pass the ball to? Who's left on that team that can score? Matthew Dellavedova? Probably not. Kyrie Irving's gone. Kevin Love's been gone for a while. It's either going to be LeBron or nobody, and after a while it may not be LeBron if he keeps showing fatigue and they can't get him a rest in the subsequent games.
Well, you got a streaky shooter in J.R. Smith. If you can get one of those games where he gets into a hot streak, rattles off a few threes in a row, he could be one of those guys that can help you steal a game maybe on the road and could swing this series there.
Like he did, I think, in the conference finals, Woody hit like 7 or 8 3-pointers in the game that helped them clinch, I believe it was.
But you're basically buying a lottery ticket there. That's not a guy you want to rely on if you have to.
And a lot of it comes back to the fact that the Cavaliers have also played awfully well on defense, and they've kept Stephen Curry pretty well under control to this point.
Yeah, well, you guys think of Dellavedova's defensive effort there that last game. Was that him or just Curry just having an off night?
Well, I saw the defense, and I'm not trying to blame. You kind of threw the refs underneath there, but there's a lot of hand checking every time he was running by, a pick. Delano was reaching out, grabbing, holding. I mean, if they're going to let that go, it's great D. If he can get away with it, and he's a taller, bigger guy. But what I saw a lot of was hand checking and holding and grabbing, and if you're going to, that's what you got to do to slow down Curry because he's going to run around all those picks. And if the refs are going to let it go, it's going to be great D, and he's going to be causing problems the whole time.
It sounds like from what people have said, when Golden State was in the same situation in the past, I think against Memphis, they started to bring the ball inside a little more, started to drive to the bucket a little more. I think we can look for that. I think they can look for some things to, also other things to free up Curry, screens, double screens, that sort of thing, more set plays maybe. And the X factor, as we've sort of suggested here, is the officiating. How is it going to be called at the end of Game 3? How much will the home crowd be an influence? We don't know those things, and I guess whoever does the most effective job of lobbying from the bench, whether it's Coach Blatt, Assistant Coach LeBron James, or Steve Kerr, might just have the edge.
You think the Golden State has a little more options too. Klay Thompson's a heck of a player. I think Harrison Barnes is another scoring threat for them. They think they have more options. Do you think they could go somewhere different and maybe use Curry more as a decoy a little bit?
I've been impressed with Harrison Barnes. That's one of the things that the Ames High product. He's gotten big. I noticed that the other day. He's really filled out, and he looks like an NBA player now.
Well, let's move on a little bit to Major League Baseball. We're at about the 1/3 point of the season. Got some interesting teams sitting atop their respective divisions at this point. Some that I certainly wouldn't have guessed would be there. But get you guys' thoughts on some of these things. In the American League, we got the Yankees on top of the East, who are supposed to be kind of rebuilding this year. We got the Royals and the Twins on top of the Central, and the Astros in the West. Where are these races headed?
Well, I think you said it with the unexpected thing. I mean, even if you look at all six, go to the National League as well. There's really only one or two where you would have kind of predicted at the beginning of the year that these teams were going to be in first place. 1/3 of the way in the season doesn't say much, but that's baseball. I guess you just kind of never know what's going to happen in these races.
The Yankees are surprising to me because not only are they, a team that no one predicted at the beginning of the season, but then you have an injury to Tanaka, their best pitcher, Ellsbury, one of their best hitters, a speed guy, and they've done it without those two. Who would have guessed that? And then you've got Tampa, that's a game and a half back of New York after Joe Madden goes to the Cubs, and there's no one on that roster really. So that AL East is crazy, and then Baltimore and Boston have just been major disappointments at the bottom of that division.
You have the Yankees as you're getting just enough pitching from their starters, and they got a great bullpen, and they're going to win a lot of games with that bullpen, and I think that's helping them. And they've gotten Teixeira's only batting like .220, but it seems like whenever he gets a hit, he's driving somebody in. He's like one of the league leaders in RBI.
Is that kind of the formula the Royals used last year with the bullpen? You've got Betances and Miller, and those guys have been just lights out for the Yankees this season.
If you can get to the 6th inning or so, you're going to be good.
The interesting, over in the National League, we got the Cardinals and the Mets and the Dodgers leading their divisions. I think you would have expected the Dodgers and the Cardinals to be doing well, the Mets maybe not so much. But the interesting part of it to me is that nobody's running away with it. Nobody's putting together an incredible early season streak like we've seen in some years. It's more a case of teams that were maybe favored in those divisions not playing up to what the expectations were.
I think that's true, and the flip side of that in the American League is these teams that are missing in action. The Detroit Tigers started off well. Now I think they're either a game or 2 games above 500. The Mariners were sort of a sexy pick to be American League West champions, and they're nowhere close to 500. The Angels are always considered to be a threat, and they're right around 500. So you have to believe that one of those teams is going to get it going sooner or later. My choice would be the Angels. In the East, those teams have issues. One team I always wonder about is Toronto. Toronto lacks pitching, but they have a great lineup. They got guys that can hit. I think they have a good chemistry in the clubhouse. So maybe this is the year they sneak in and steal it all. The team that seems to be far and away, or two teams that seem to be far and away the best in the American League, in my opinion, it's the Royals. They were very impressive last night in Minnesota. The other team is St. Louis, but the Cardinals took a little bit of a hit last night. Holiday went down, I think, with a quad injury. I'm not sure how long he's going to be out, but he's an awfully good player, and I'm not sure, as good as the Cardinals are at finding replacements for guys, if they can sustain a loss like that.
Well, and then you have the Dodgers, who are that major market team, and they're starting to look like, that team that they're paying for. They're a pretty complete unit. They're using Alex Guerrero just off the bench to hit in key situations, and that's a guy that would be a star on most teams there.
Yeah, that's why I love baseball, because the unpredictable. You can look on paper at the start, you're gonna think these guys are going to be good, and it's great. The Astros, who would have thought they were coming? They're up and coming, and they're still up and coming, because last night I'm watching the draft, and it looked like they had, although they just called up Carlos Carrera up, they still have 4 or 5 top level tier guys that they can call up and fill in, including a couple pitchers. This is a team that's going to be a player here for the next 3-4 years until free agency.
And I remember entering the season, all the hype about the Nationals rotation. Well, the Mets are beating them with that young. They're going to a 6-man rotation now. They've got the Rookie of the Year back, DeGrom, and then Harvey, and they called up Syndergaard. So that's an interesting rotation they have with the Mets. And then Bartolo Colon somehow is still giving them value. I don't know what's going on with that.
I think Washington's the team you're going to see really emerge there. Anthony Rendon just came back once he gets in the full stroke, and that pitching staff gets going, I think.
Yeah, some of those teams that were favored at the beginning of the year will find their stride and go out and get what they need at the All-Star break in terms of frontline pitchers, or the big power hitter. Or Toronto's already said that they're in the market for a starting pitcher or two and some help there. So you're going to see some movement there that probably will shake things up and maybe return some normalcy to some of those divisions. One thing I'm sure of, I don't think the Minnesota Twins will be on top of the AL Central in September.
That's going to be tough, depending on guys that don't have a track record of recent success. When your ace is Mike Pelfrey, he's been tremendous, but the buzzword these days in baseball is sustainability. And you look at that team and you go, can they really sustain this? In some cases, I think Dozier can. I don't know. I don't know about Torrey Hunter. That's an amazing story. I'm not sure some of the other pitchers can, but we'll see. But I agree. It's going to be their best shot's going to be a wild card.
Interesting. Well, that's going to do it for most of this week's edition of the Paperboyz. For you baseball fans, I encourage you to check us out online and in print next week, when we'll share a project on the history of baseball in Waterloo that we've been working on for about a month. There are some great stories in those pieces, and some great memories about this city and its love of the game of baseball. That series will start Sunday and continue through the following Sunday, so keep an eye out for that. As always, we encourage your feedback. You can contact us by email at sportsdoor@wcfcourier.com, and we'll leave you with these final words of wisdom from the world of sports. If losing didn't hurt so bad, winning wouldn't feel so good. Until next week.